She brings a unique perspective on how to help her clients come alive, stand out from the crowd, and enjoy the experience of public speaking. She currently works with individuals and groups who need to appear in public or on camera and need to finesse how to stay on message, or for that matter, figure out what their message is. And now, Andrea Devaux.
Thank you so much, Susanna. And so I'm sorry to wear out my welcome, you guys, but you're stuck with me for another 15 minutes, this time talking about public speaking coaching. Now, one of the things that I wanted to let everyone know, since usually if we were doing a live talk, what I would like to do is, invite questions. Anybody who's got any questions about public speaking, you can chat, just type in on the chat, and I will be able to see those questions. So not just for the Q&A later on, but for right now too. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and if anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can respond via the chat. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, nowadays more than ever, everyone is doing public speaking and online and using a camera. So it's a whole new world, really, when it comes to having to put your best face forward and your best voice forward. Now, a lot of people have fear around public speaking. Does anyone have any idea why that might be? Anyone?
You are worried about people judging you.
Yeah, insecurity. Somebody said, worried about how people are judging you. Does anyone else relate to that? Thumbs up, yes?
Yeah, all eyes are on you, and it's just like, for me, it's like all eyes are on you.
Yeah, exactly. This is the biggest fear that people have, is just being judged. What if I say it wrong? What am I wearing? Or I suck. Just all these things are going on in your head. And while all of those things are going on in your head, guess what's happened to the talk that you prepared?
Out of your head.
Gone, right? It's totally gone, right? So what I like to tell clients is that when you have a talk prepared, first off, you know more than your audience usually about what you're going to say, right? So you first need to remind yourself that you are the authority, okay? Nobody's perfect, right? So what you can say to yourself is, it's kind of like that, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. That Stuart Smalley character from Saturday Night Live years ago. So what you want to do is tell yourself you know more than everyone else, but then, assuming you're the expert, you also want to put your focus on helping the audience. So hopefully you're at an event where you know who is in the audience. Now, let's say you are giving a talk at a school. Now, there's no talks going on at schools right now, obviously, but let's say you were giving a talk to the PTA or to the school, depending on who your audience is. Can you imagine if it was the PTA, Parent Teacher Association? You would be gearing the conversation to a different type of conversation than if you were giving the talk to high school seniors, because everybody is listening with the WII-FM radio station. You know that? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? I'm getting some chats here, so let me just check here. Okay, right speaker mode is best. Christina Gerber, you come online if there's something that I'm getting people saying, where is speaker mode?
So if you go to the top where you have two options, you have a gallery view and a speaker view. So right now, most of you are probably in gallery view, so you can see everyone. So if you change it to speaker view, then you'll see just Andrea with everyone across the top, or depending on how your layout is.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Yeah, and in fact, if you've got a square, you can click on the square of the person that you want to hear from. Even if they are not on the whole time, it will just stay on that person's square. I've got it on an iPad, so that's the case for me. All right, so fears and concerns, insecurities. Like I said, you want to be putting your emphasis on helping others, Now imagine you've got people in the audience who are there to genuinely hear what you have to say. So most of the time they're on your side and they want you to succeed. So if you allow yourself to just be of service, to be of help to others, then you will notice when you are helping others, you tend to forget about yourself and your worries and fears and concerns. So that's one of the fastest ways to get over those anxieties where you're judging yourself and, you know, basically having a dialogue with yourself instead of really being present. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, great. It is a little strange doing a talk when you're not necessarily getting feedback, even though it is sort of live. Now, knowing your audience, again, I've mentioned that it is really important to know who you're talking to. It is going to change the way you speak. And then let's say you are doing a Zoom recording. There's a few things that I want to go over. I'll do that a little bit later, but just some things you will need to. Oh, I'm getting a message from Wendy. I'm happy to offer. Are these messages relating to my talk, or are they something else? Okay, I'm going to ask you a favor. Everyone is not to do chats about your businesses unless it just for while I'm doing the talk, so that I can specifically answer any questions regarding my talk. Okay. Okay. So, all right. You want to be of help. That means you put your focus on the audience and their needs. Now, you also, you know, there are some concerns and fears. Like, let's say you say something wrong, or you got misinformation, or maybe somebody's asked you a question and you don't know the answer to that. Do any of you had that experience where you've given a talk where that happened?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So there are a couple of things that can go on. The first is they call it the elephant in the room, which is acknowledging what's happening. Like right now, I'm giving a talk and something happened and I immediately acknowledge it. Because the fact is that people can see what's going on for you. They can see that you are already, you've kind of like your attention's gone somewhere else and you're having to deal with it. Now it might be, let's say you're giving a PowerPoint presentation and you drop the clicker or something like that. You could just say, oh gosh, I'm such a klutz when I'm nervous, you know, or say something that helps people get that you're another human being. Because when you honestly own what's going on for you, people are drawn to you and they want to be on your side and support you. Okay, so that's what I have to say about. I'm keeping kind of a Cliff Notes version of my talk because there's so much more to say. Let's talk about the game plan. Let's talk about when you're trying to prepare for a talk and you don't know what to say. Has anyone had a hard time finding the right messaging or preparing something that really makes sense to your audience? Anyone? Yes? Yeah. You're all just listening attentively. You're so well behaved, you guys. So preparing a talk or a message is really about the same as if you were going on television and you were paying for a 30-second Super Bowl spot, right? Something that was costing a lot of money. You would want to bring all of the minds in, all of the people on your team to strategize and make sure that the message that you were putting out was the one that was really in line with what your business is, right? One that's also, again, going to relate the most to your audience. Again, WIIFM, what's in it for me? You want to think about what your audience is listening and why they're listening to you in the first place, okay? So once you've honed down on what that message is, you want to find other ways, creative ways of getting that message across. They say, what are you going to say? You use repetition, like, you know, in real estate, it's location, location, location. Well, when it's public speaking, it's repetition, repetition, repetition. You always want to find different ways to sneak your message in. Now, let's say you were going on television and you had just an interview, right? People could be tuning in just for part of that interview, but not for the whole time. So if you say what your main message is and put it in different ways of sneaking it in, you might say, well, this is what I came here to talk about, my company, Widgets International, and we do amazing things with widgets, right? But then you might find another opportunity to talk about an example or a personal story that made what your company does come alive. And also what's really great with personal stories is no one can refute it. You know, you're like, well, Mary, who used our services, had an amazing outcome, you know. And so when you say that, nobody can argue it. No, she didn't. You know, it's like, yeah, this is so story, right? Does that make sense? So that's a great thing with personal stories, talking about satisfied customers. Also, as we know, throughout history, we have learned through storytelling. And there's a great saying, facts tell, stories sell. So when you're using a story to come across with what your company is all about, what your business, so what your identity as an entrepreneur is all about, using those stories will help bring it home. Now, for those of you who've worked with me, often I will encourage you to think about satisfied customers and use those examples. And that is entirely by design. Now, another thing that's really great to do, especially when you come out the gate when you're doing a talk, is to interact with everyone right away, is to have that conversation where you're asking people questions to get them involved, to get them sitting forward in their chairs, and also to smoke out what's going on with the audience. So I highly encourage asking questions. Now with that, I'm just gonna look to the chat and see if there's anything. So Stephanie said, I usually know what I'm going to say, but then my brain completely freezes up. I panic and laugh. Advice. Yes, very good question there, Stephanie. So again, that would be the case of the elephant in the room. So you come in, you're like, start to say something, and then you have that out of body experience, the old beam me up Scotty moment, right? Deer in the headlights. What do? You acknowledge just what happened. You say, oh crap, I am so nervous. I completely forgot what I was going to say, right? Hopefully in saying that, that buys you some time. It immediately wins you over with the audience because they understand. Most people, like, you know, seriously, most people are afraid of giving talks in public. So they really get it. Yeah. All right. So Stephanie, I hope I answered your question. Carolyn is asking me another one. Hang on. Can you talk how to effectively use notes? Notes are kind of a game plan or a strategy. They're kind of like a nice idea, right? Having notes is very helpful. Try and just do bullet points that you can refer to. I've got some notes there in extremely large print, and they're some underlined, some bold, just so I can quickly glance down and get right onto it. But having like a whole speech written out is a really bad idea. What you do want to do is really practice what you're going to say out loud, not to yourself in your head. When you practice out loud, you're actually using a different muscle memory as opposed to when you're saying it in your head. So it's really not the same as, you know, oh, you hearing the howl? It's 8 o'clock. You guys hearing that?
Uh-huh. Oh.
Okay, so hopefully I answered that one. You know, getting ready for a media interview is a lot like a sporting event. You need to do, anyone who's played team sports. Oh, Bara's saying she can hear something in the East Bay. Howling. Okay, so sporting events, what do you have? You've got like, you have your team, you know what sport you're playing, right? You have a uniform. Can you guys see me okay? By the way, the sun's going down and I'm realizing I'm hovering over a lamp. Can you see me okay? Or should I turn on another light?
It's great. It's very mysterious.
It's very romantic.
Very romantic. I know this is my dinner lighting. Hang
Yeah,
on,
you
I'm
need
just
more
gonna-
light.
I need more light. Okay, hang on a second here.
Oh, the romance light is great.
It's going to ruin the vibe.
No,
But there I am.
That's better. That's better.
Still
Yeah,
good. It's
it
still
was-
romantic.
It is. Yes, exactly. Good. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I was realizing the sun's going down really fast. Okay. So what I just did was a classic example of elephant in the room. I noticed something was happening. Something wasn't going quite right. And instead of making it really awkward, I included all of you in that. Did you get that? Was what kind of just happened? Yep. And so that is how you create like a rapport with your audience, that everyone's on your side to help you succeed. And when that happens, when you have that rapport, you're less likely to forget about what you're there to do, because you're really just there to be of service. All right. So getting back to the sporting thing, you have to prepare, right? You have a game plan or a strategy, kind of like what I was saying around having notes or having an idea of what your message is, right? That's your game plan or your strategy. You need to practice. That's very important. Another thing you need is coaching. I mean, most everyone who's done some kind of sporting event had a coach, and the same goes for public speaking. You also have a uniform. Now, a uniform in public speaking is some outfit that works with you, with your color scheme, with, eye color even. I heard one person who did image consulting say that if you choose a color that is the same as your eye color, that people will trust you more.
Oh, interesting.
I know. So hence I'm wearing a green shirt. So hopefully you're going to trust me. But you want to have a uniform. You want to find something with somewhat stiff fabric if you're doing an on-camera thing, and they need to clip the microphone on. So you don't want these flimsy tops, or knits and things. You want something that's somewhat stiff fabric, something that's not too busy. No blacks, no whites. I generally don't recommend. I know Elaine Houseman is the exception to the rule. She looks fabulous in blacks and whites on camera, but generally I do not recommend it. Cameras love color, okay? And then you want to study your opponent. Let's say you're going to talk about your business, but you need to know what is being said about other people who are in a competitive business to you. So that's all of these things are what is done when you are playing a sport. You apply those things for when you're going on camera. Now, going very quickly to Zoom etiquette, and then I'll wrap up. Zoom etiquette includes hair. Anyone dealing with flyaway hair? Anyone? Yep. Right? So flyaways is a couple of tricks. One of my friends is a hairstylist, and she said to get rid of flyaways using a bristle brush for a start will help calm down the flyaways. But another thing you can do, if it's just out of control, like my hair, generally I get a lot of flyaways, is I put myself against a darker background as opposed to a white. Andrea is saying, I find pulling my hair back is very unflattering. Yes, you don't necessarily want to pull your hair back, but if you change the background. Yes, I agree, Andrea. I understand. So if you're against a light background, you're more easily, can you see, it's more easy to detect flyaways and whatnot?
Totally. Yep.
Whereas when you go against a darker background or a busier background, you're not going to pick up on that so much. So that's one thing that you can think about, particularly when we're all doing these Zoom things and you're like, oh God, my hair looks like hell, Another thing is camera angle. Okay, so you want to make sure that the camera angle is slightly higher. I don't know about you guys, but do you like having extra chins? Anyone? No. Christina Gerber does, but I don't. So I've worked with some actors and actresses who insist, they have it in their contract that you cannot have the camera at the straightaway or lower than their face. They prefer to have the camera just at either eye or slightly higher. So I'll use myself here as an example. Let's say you've got the camera, hang on, like that, okay? Can you see me? Right? So more chins, right? Whereas when you have the camera slightly above you, It's just a more flattering, less chin action. You don't want to have it so high that you're all forehead, but just a tiny little minutia of having it slightly up and angled down on you, way more flattering. I mean, I don't know if any of you have been when you're out at a museum and somebody got a camera and said, oh, let me get a shot of you in front of the building, right? And so you're there and they're going down on the ground and they've got like, you're all like legs and 3 chins. And then there's the building. I tell you what, never go along with that idea. Just say, take a picture of me or take a picture of the building. I don't know if you're vain like me.
Little montage.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. I'm getting a couple of questions coming in here. Hang on. Let me just make sure I get to all of you. Okay, good. How do you feel about virtual backgrounds? I'm not a huge fan because sometimes they moray a little bit. In fact, we tried that out at a leadership meeting the other day. We had a virtual Piatti background. We were trying it out. And what happened was there was sort of like the hair, if it wasn't just a complete blob, sort of like made this distracting visual effect with the virtual background. But Michelle did it very successfully recently with her what were you on the moon or something. And so it just depends. But if you've got any kind of gaps in your hair or any gaps that might change what's going on with the background, it will kind of look weird and be distracting. So I prefer not to have a virtual background. That's my preference. Lighting, you always want to have lights from the front, not from behind. You want to also consider where your frame is, so you bring your hands up into the frame to talk. Because if I'm doing all these amazing movements and I'm not bringing my hands up, it just looks like I'm getting busy on the shoulders. Okay. Yeah, which maybe I am, but yeah. All right. So we've covered clothing, audio. Listen, with the Zoom thing, you probably want to be heard well is get a, microphone headset. Okay, so you could be heard clearly. And then where to look. Now, right now, I'm looking for the chats, so I'm not looking to the camera. But basically, if you want to look at the camera, let's say for a commercial you're doing, or let's say you do Michelle's, take advantage of Michelle's Zoom promotion, you will want to look at that little dot. So you look right at that little dot and it looks like you're talking to the person. So can you see, you guys, when I'm looking right there, it looks like I'm looking right at you. Okay, so that's just another thing. Always remember where your camera is. Okay, and finally, put a smile in your voice. So when you put a smile in your voice, it will make what you're saying come across kinder and softer. Okay, all right, so that's my time. I think I've gone well over, but we had a lot of distractions. A lot of elephants in this room. And
wolves.
Wolves howling, lighting issues, everything on what not to do. Any other questions, anyone? You can unmute yourself and just chime in if anyone has one. Okay, excellent. Well, it looks like I've answered everyone's questions then, yes?
Thank you, it was great.
Loved it.
Thank
It
you.
was wonderful. Loved
It
it.
was amazing, Andrea.
Wonderful.
Brilliant. Excellent job.
I tell you what, it's a bit rough doing a Zoom talk.
You did a great job.
You did great.
I'm glad you were the first one to do it.
Yes, yes. So I had to take one for the team.
Yeah.
So great. Excellent. Okay, so it's me again. Going back into my other role.
Andrea, may I have one question, please?
Yeah, go for it.
So thank you. The talk was fantastic. And I'm wondering if you would say anything differently if someone were doing just an audio recording as opposed to a video presentation or a TV appearance or something like that.
Yeah, for audio, definitely want to slow down. Oh, and I will, I'll cancel the recording, Andrea, after I answer this question. Definitely you do want to slow down when you're doing an audio recording. You want to put emphasis with your voice on certain words. It's all about pacing and letting your words breathe. So when it's live, you've got a lot more, a lot more going on, right? A lot more information visually and audio, right? But when it's just audio, you've got to let all of that be done just with your voice. So things like getting ready to say something, taking just a breather, saying the next thing, or let's say you're being interviewed on radio or something like that, really letting that, you make your statement or your soundbite, leave it with an opportunity for the other person to come in. Don't just do a monologue and like not leave that other person an opportunity to come and ask another question or get involved or help you out. Maybe you're just, you're on a sinking ship and you need to like let that just pause so someone else can come in.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I'm going to cut recording. Okay.
Actually, can I share one thing before you cut it? I think you'll like.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that I actually got one of your first hardcovers of your book. I said, well, it's a soft cover. It's a great book, and it's filled with way more information than you were able to share tonight. So really, really useful. And I read it really quickly. I had an interview on Facebook like the next day. So I zoomed through it and it was super useful. It really helped a lot with how the interview went. It was much more dynamic and I had some good tips. So thank you. It's very
Thank you
useful.
very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, great. I'm going to quit recording now.
So you wanted that on there.
Thank you.
You know,